Hi everyone, my name is Klaudia and I will be talking about two topics today. The first one, I will be talking about how to improve your CV as a judge, and the second one is how to fill an IA application. So I will start with the first one, and please, the things which I will say, I think that some stuff which I noted as a trend when I'm on CA teams, or some stuff which I would recommend personally. Presumably there are also other methods. So don't think that this is exhaustive list, but I hope it will be helpful as a couple of guidelines, okay? So firstly, in terms of how to improve your CV as a judge, I would note a couple of things. So presumably you want this in order to be accepted as a paid IA or in general accepted as a judge to the tournaments or like invited adjudicator. So you need to know that you applying into the competitive pool usually. So there are tournaments when sometimes you're getting 100 plus applications, 150 or even 60. It's a lot to process, right? Specifically when there are limited amount of paid spots and there are things which we need to prioritize. And I think you need to firstly pay attention which type of competition you are applying to and how much you can gain out of this. I know that might sound badly for some of the smaller competitions, but let's look from the selfish perspective of the judge who would like to get more opportunities, who would like to judge more tournaments. You need to pick the tournaments which are recognizable in the regions that they have some level of reputation. What I mean by this is that the tournaments which have the institution name, which have open name, or which have like IV name, this is something which is popular in Europe, presumably gave you more recognition and more to your CV than humor IV, serious IV, summer IV, spring IV, untitled IV, etc., right? Because it's very hard then to recognize, to connect the competition or to remember about them. So usually the competition which have longer history and a track record are more likely to be noted by the members of the CA team, these people. So you want to look into that. But second of all, as well, the amount of rooms which competition have. Usually the competitions which are the biggest, which have 20 plus rooms, are also something which people can recognize and also something which usually gave you the advantage into the algorithm, which some competitions are using in order to score CVs. Uh, and lastly, I think you want to pick tournaments where there are future majors, CAs or DCAs. So that's the people who usually will be CAing a bit more, and they are usually more involved in the circuit, and they usually are sent there in order to check the people, or they will be asked to provide information if you apply for other competition, how was your performance, how this person did. So if you have a choice as a judge, please consider these factors. The second thing is sometimes it's worth to judge for free some of the online competitions, even if you are not getting a compensation, because sometimes people who are getting compensation are not available for all of the outrans, are not available on the last day, or some of the people with strong CVs sometimes just popping in for a round or two, which means that the core still needs to feel and break people in the quantity in order to put them into the outruns. So at that type of tournaments, even if sometimes your CV it's not the strongest there, but you perform well, you can easily progress and get, additional break, which can later help you to get the next application, to get the next invitation, to get the next opportunity. So I would say that this is something which I would consider effective. Then in terms of improving your CV as a judge as well, I would say about your performance, right? So you want to be the judge who know how to submit ballot, who is aware of this. You want to be the judge who do not delay deliberation even if they disagree. You want to be the judge who is concise, who not overspeak or it's not being overruled to the other people, but also the judge who have a stable connection, which is important for like online debating specifically. Because if you can't rely on some judge, and sometimes you don't have capacity to have more judges than one, then it's very hard to assume that the room is covered and that you will be important addition there, right? So that's the kind of stuff which you want to take care of your reputation. So if there is a competitive pool, people will not pick the other one who have the same CV as you based on these factors, right? And as I said, I know that might sound harsh, but this is the reality if we don't know people personally and if we have the responsibility and obligation to the participants, to the speakers, to give them the best possible experience. And sometimes also seeing it's unpaid role or very little paid role. So you don't have time to go into every single detail. So you base your judgment on this. So you want to make sure that your character CV, it's also good. You do not double judge, you do not drop out from rounds last minute, you do not cancel the rounds. So that's also something which I think it's important for the CV, for your reputation as well. So then strictly to the merit stuff. You need to know the manual, if this is like, World manual or Euros manual, depends on your circuit, but you also can't over focus on the things which you're reading or over incorporate these rules. Because I met a lot of people who I was judging with, they over fixated on the one bit of the manual or on the one bit in terms of the speeches. So they didn't look for the speeches holistically. And sometimes for judges who are the chair judges or who feel feedback or who deciding on your promotion, that's not the best course of behavior, because then sometimes people trying to prove that they are stubborn because they are following the rules. But I think the interpretation of the rules, it's not something which is like set in stone. So for example, if the teams will say something which is not necessarily the strongest and it might be potentially a contradiction, that doesn't mean that every single bits of their speeches or self-mitigation automatically means that their case is worthless and therefore that you should place them lower. Or the second thing, which is important, for example, for BP, it's pairwise comparisons. So you can't compare teams like, oh, I like this, or I think they did that. I think you need to be a bit more specific in terms of, here is how I value their engagement. Here, what I think about their constructive. Here, what I think about their weighing, if it's present. Because I think as well, when you have limited time, look, it's like 15 minutes for deliberation, right? Sometimes there are a lot of people in the panel. So you also need to take into consideration the constraints of judging and constraints of the time which you have. Obviously, if this is only you and the chair, then it's different. Lastly, in terms of how to improve your CV as chair, I think you need to give the OA which is clear and be capable to rationalize why you place team on displays by using the rules of the format which you are judging in. So if, for example, the team give you clear metric to judge the debate, but it didn't win them, you need to tell why it was the case. Either the other team gave the other metric and refuted the first metric, or the metric was good, but the constructive case under the metric was not proven, or maybe you were missing something very crucial. Okay, so that's some stuff which I think are necessarily important and should be done and should be considered. So that's a couple of advices for me, how I think you can improve your CV as a judge. In terms of how to fill an I application, what to do, what didn't do. Please, 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 please do not attach your Word document. Please do not write more details than asked necessary. Like, genuinely, I sometimes have a big desire to just reject everyone who do not read the inscription in the form. When I ask you for 5 achievements, I want 5 achievements, not 7, not 10, not 20, not linked to the Word doc. I will not open your doc. Like, that's not something which I'm able to do. I can assess your capacity to judge based on your top 5 achievements. So that's definitely the first thing, how to fill I application. The second thing is, please prioritize the tournaments in the format for which you're applying. So if this is a BP tournament and you gave me 4 AP tournaments and 1 WSDC tournament, and I have a person with 5 BP experience tournaments, obviously I'll pick the person with BP, because then I know that they know the format, that they know the pairwise comparisons, that they have a experience, which I think requiring them the different types of ballots, the different ways how to handle the panel discussion and deliberation. So this is important. So please, please prioritize achievements in the format for which you're applying. The third thing about filling I applications, it's as well put the tournaments which people can recognize, or at least gave some level of indication, for example, the amount of rooms, if I don't know, or worst case, just link the tab link. I mean, I don't think it's worst case, actually. but a lot of tabs were down, or sometimes literally, if I have 150 applications, I will not have time to track the tab. And if you believe that it's a tournament which was super valid, super credible, you don't need to give me description. Just give me the link. I'll track the information from there. So I much prioritize putting your top 5 achievements. And if this is a tournament which you believe in your region, it's super important, super high value, but maybe I will not know this. And if you give me the link and I will see, oh my God, yeah, the tournament had like 30 rooms, and they had a lot of judges and they were competitive, then yeah, that's something which I will credit. The other thing is, please do not put me information. If you are subsidized, invited adjudicator, that means nothing. I mean, unless you were the breaking adjudicator, it's unlikely to be competitive compared to the other applicants who I have put it, or like who I need to select the IAs from, right? So this is the factors which I will be paying attention into. Please don't lie. Please don't put fake information. People tend to check it. But also now, I think it's good that Andrew Chen put the algorithm which can calculate for you how strong your CV is. So if you believe, for example, that your number is something which is your strong asset, maybe respond to the post, put your number there as the additional information or on top of your CV. Maybe because the algorithm also consider how competitive the judge pool is. Maybe that also gave the CA team good indication of how competitive you are. So that's also something good to do. All right. Okay, I hope that you find it helpful. I will also attach a presentation and a document, so you'll be able to get the concise information. As the topic is pretty short, that will be probably like 2 or 3 slides. So feel free to use them. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Best of luck, and thank you for inviting me for this.